Well, it's May, and at this time of the year, we are surrounded by all kinds of pomp and circumstance for degrees that have been conferred, milestones that have been met, and life transitions in the making. It is inspiring and exciting to encourage one another to passionately pursue our interests and apply our gifts in the world. Gaining knowledge and skills for new work is very rewarding. And I'm excited for our graduates among us today, especially those graduating from Pacific School of Religion this afternoon. And yet, today's passage from the book of Proverbs is a bold break in this season's celebrations. Do you hear Lady Wisdom calling? Can you hear Madame Insight raising her voice? I am talking to all of you, everyone out here on the streets, everyone. We can stand in awe of the smart and knowledgeable valedictorians and a summa cum laude honoree, but Lady Wisdom also invites us to stand in awe of creation, the miraculous and powerful mind, body, and spirit of every human being, including ourselves and our worst enemy. Wisdom, that creative energy that was with God in the very beginning, is engraved in the heart of every human being. We, all of us, are wired for wisdom. No one can take it away from us. It is equally available for all. You don't have to enroll in school, pay tuition, and exercise your mind in class, writing papers, and taking exams. We simply have to stand in awe. That funny mix of reverence, dread, respect, and wonder. And remember the power of our being. How wonderful it sounds, and how delighted God is when we embrace wisdom and its essential connection with goodness. But we all know too well what happens when wisdom is not part of the picture. That frantic, overly electronic, and preoccupied way of life. During my junior and senior high years, that was quite some time ago, but it was probably the time I was beginning my practice of frantic and preoccupied living, Successories, which is a producer and retailer of motivational office decor, was launched and made a sweeping presence across the nation. I largely recall the posters, mostly featuring photographs paired with succinct sentiments about teamwork, discipline, integrity, and courage. Perhaps you have a successory or two on your desk, or at work, or on your wall at home. And despite what I feel is a bit of a cheesy name, every time I read a successory, my inner voice shouts, "Yeah!" The power of a successory is its ability to remind us of the power of our being, particularly when we are least capable of remembering this ourselves, whether due to a tragedy of overwhelm, despair, or simply self-doubt. Successories remind me that others have faced challenges too. Others have gotten through, and so, yeah, I believe I can do it too. Somehow, these succinct statements tap into our longing, our inner knowing. It eliminates the voices, internal and external, that try to tell us something different. And we once again stand in awe of what is, the power of our being since the beginning of creation. I feel like Successories was the corporate world's effort to translate to corporate language the deeply faith-filled message that God gifted us, all of us, the power to create and renew. And God delights in every "yeah" that we feel and act upon. So before Successories came into being, and even now, in the language of our faith, how do we remember the power of our being? How do we hear Lady Wisdom calling to us? Well, when we share stories of our lives, we find companions for the journey, we find solidarity in the experiences we are having, we gain wisdom for what might come our way, and most importantly, we strengthen relationships one to another. So here's my story this week. My family has been going through a stressful time, a quick and unexpected move, a house with work projects and an uncertain sale, an out-of-town travel for my husband, 3 rapidly developing and character-filled children, constantly exploring and testing their newfound skills. I could go on, but I think you get the picture. In the midst of these stressors, I have found myself to become a yeller, yelling at these 3 precious little people who I love more than life. So thankfully, on Thursday, I read a blog post. It was entitled, "The Important Thing About Yelling." It's written by a mom who had recognized 3 years ago the destructive power of yelling at her children and made a commitment to stop and recreate herself as the mother she wanted her children to grow up with. Now, 3 years later, she shared the poem that her 9-year-old daughter wrote on Mother's Day. The first line read, "The important thing about my mom is she's always there for me, even when I get in trouble." The tears came, which I always say is the Spirit filling in the cracks of life. And the Spirit moved in me, reminding me of the beautiful, wondrous, loving human that God created me to be, while simultaneously acknowledging my current failure. I am so grateful for the story shared by another mom. For in her wisdom, in her remembering, in her recreating, I too heard Lady Wisdom calling to me, reminding me that the creative energy that was with God in the very beginning and that animates all things is in me. And if I obey the voice of wisdom, the longings that are hidden deep within can be put to action. Scary, hard, necessary. Perhaps this is why 12-step programs and its serenity prayer are so powerful in reordering the path of life. The 12 steps provide a process for hearing the wisdom of what can be changed and what cannot. Wisdom is there, yelling at us in the busiest, most distracting periods of life. Those times when everything seems out of line, when our deeply rooted values seem impossible to live out. Now, we all know there are obstacles of various kinds, all coming to us unexpectedly. Nothing of the world will tell us that it is coming and whether it is for us or against us. Everything will come when it wants to come. To take these things in their proper spirit when they come, whether they are for us or against us, is part of the wisdom of life. Mere book learning will not help us in this matter, or tell us how these things will act upon us, or what they mean to us at any given moment. And this dilemma is the one I raise before the 4 engaged young adult couples that I am working with right now as they prepare for marriage. They want to know the kinds of conflicts they should expect and possibly plan for in married life. I consider giving them a case study or two, so academic in nature, And I realize that you can give case scenarios to a medical student preparing to treat health issues so that she will learn to apply the latest research findings and current protocol of care. But asking an engaged couple to consider the scenario of losing a child, of one developing cancer, or one having an affair is something that can't be planned or prepared for. The reality is conflict will occur in a marriage. The reality is more than 50% of marriages these days end in divorce. And the reality is the wisdom that will surface in the face of conflict is not the wisdom accessible now. There can be something so disconcerting about this. How can we not have any control? But God has not created us on a whim and sent us forth to live on a whim. In the very fabric of our being, God has established wisdom. God has granted us the creative forces of life that will carry us through, will work with us, that will always be available to us. So what I have reiterated to these young couples is the vows they will make in their marriage ceremony. The promise to love the other faithfully as long as both shall live is an awesome thing. It asks and it requires courage, character, and commitment. And when they make these wild and bold promises in the presence of God, they shall know the help of God, of a power not their own, of a love that upholds them and a grace that sustains them amid life's joys and sorrows. For all of us, regardless of marital status or age, we know we will experience tragedy. We will face despair. We will have times when all will be terrible. And the only way to prepare for these times in our lives is to remember God has gifted us the capacity to create and to renew. We are invited to welcome that spirit into everyday life, to sure foot this practice, to be disciplined in the power of our being, because wisdom atrophies if it is not walked on a regular basis. So listen to the wisdom of your life. It's an awesome task. Whether you need to hear it from others or you can see it yourself, listen to the wisdom of others and remember that all will be well. When the accumulated wisdom of the world is at the center of our lives, it is the currency of our relationships. It is the axis on which we revolve. We will be delighting in the human family, and God will be delighting in all of creation. As I close, I offer to you this beautiful poem by Jan Richardson, poured into our hearts. Like a cup, like a chalice, like a basin, like a bowl. When the Spirit comes, let it find our heart like this, shaped like something that knows how to receive what is given, that knows how to hold what comes to fill, that knows how to gather itself around what arrives as unbidden, unsought, unmeasured love.